From the unexplained to the mundane, come join us on a journey to the fringe. Hello and welcome to Journey to the Fringe, where the spirit of the season is alive and well, but not in like a possessed sort of way, more in like we like to exploit it for listens. So we are your exploiting podcast hosts, Taylor and Chelsea, here today doing an episode on possessions in the criminal law system. I just really like the idea of somebody arguing in court that they were possessed, they didn't have capacity to commit a crime. It surprisingly happened more than you think.
I just want to put it out into the universe. I know that I'm constantly saying, I think I would be good at this job. You put out into the universe and just hope it comes back. I feel like the vibes I get from what this episode is going to be so far, I could sit on a jury. No, maybe I would be the professional expert on it. I don't know. I'm just putting out all the vibes that I get, and we'll see what we come back with. And I will in my life.
And it changes depending on which jurisdiction you're into. We don't quite have a case that's really relevant in Canada. However, I did put a Canadian case in here.
Ooh.
Just because I think it is possession adjacent, but you can be the judge when we get to it.
Adjacent. Okay, I will be the judge because I assume by completing this episode, I'm going to be certified.
Basically an expert on the topic, yes.
At least in some capacity in law towards possession or something, right? That's what you were thinking for this episode, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. At least for me.
Whenever doing a law episode, I do feel the need to say this is not legal advice. Please go find a real lawyer. Get them to do some research and don't just have them listen to our episode. If you are facing some sort of murder charge and you were possessed at the time. This is a terrible way to start your defense.
We see here exhibit number 1. This was an expert from a Halloween episode of Journey to the Fringe.
But only kind of. We had this discussion. It's not really a Halloween episode because it's only a Halloween episode for one day, and then most of our listens come after day 1. So it can't quite be a Halloween episode.
It still counts. That's insane.
In criminal law, a successful defense often hinges on whether the defendant had mens rea, the mental intent to commit the crime, the guilty mind. When someone claims they are possessed, they are hell stem from a mental disorder or involuntary state. Courts typically reject supernatural claims outright, but they may interpret them as signs of psychosis, dissociation, or delusional thinking. In this way, possession becomes a metaphor or symptom of an underlying psychiatric condition.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The challenge is that possession lacks empirical grounding. Unlike schizophrenia or dissociative identity disorder, there's no clinical framework for diagnosing demonic influence. So when defendants claim possession, courts often pivot to evaluating their mental capacity through psychiatric assessments. If the person is found to be suffering from recognized mental illness that impairs judgment or impulse control, they may be deemed not criminally responsible. This is what happened in several of the cases that we're going to look at. Insanity ends up being what's claimed. In essence, the legal system doesn't really say possession took place, but it treats it as a red flag for deeper psychological dysfunction.
So it's still like quantifying it as something, just not like what
the person lacked. The guilty mind, the actual intention to do the crime is basically what you're arguing. Because when you have a murder, you have two things. You have the actual death of a person, the killing, the action, the actus reus, the guilty act. What you also need to get murder is the mens rea, the guilty mind. So that's the difference between manslaughter and murder. Manslaughter, you just need the actual killing. With murder, you need both a killing and an intent to kill.
Yeah.
And what they argue with possession is I didn't have the intent to kill because I was possessed.
Yeah, they're quantifying it as a mental illness. They wouldn't take like a religious stance on it that would consider it a possession.
Yeah, and I think we actually kind of saw this exact same thing play out on the haunted house lawsuit that we looked at, where the courts make a lot of jokes about it actually being haunted, but more so focus on like the legal technicalities that they would want to do it under.
I can't remember. Oh gosh, that
instead of actually making a finding that the house is haunted, it was, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So interesting. Why is that? Just because like law wouldn't like
that's
take
not
an
the
authority?
Place. No, that's not the place to argue out whether or not possession can be something that actually
Okay.
exists.
Okay.
All we're looking for is whether or not the person actually had the capacity to commit the crime, like mentally want to carry out the action.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
And if they can ground it on something an expert can talk about, then yeah, that's what you're going to do. However, this does reveal a deeper tension between belief and psychiatric evaluation. Judges and juries may not accept that a demon pulled the trigger, but they do consider whether the defendant had the mental capacity to form intent. In this way, possession often serves as a dramatic mask for underlying psychological disorders, reframed through the lens of insanity and automatism. To see how this plays out in practice, let's turn to the cases themselves, where defendants gripped by what they believed were otherworldly forces stood trial for crimes that shocked their communities. And we have actually covered one of these cases in a previous Halloween episode, strangely enough.
Oh, Halloween has the best episodes.
And this is the case of Michael Taylor, the Ossett murder case. I believe this is in the episode Exercise is Good for the Soul.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
And this is just a summary of the case because we go over it pretty in depth there, but it's just a fun way to get the juices of possession flowing. Michael Taylor lived in Ossett, West Yorkshire in England. And in 1974, the local vicar, Peter Vincent, called in experienced ministers in preparation to cast out demons residing in this man. The exorcism occurred the night of October 5th going into the 6th, 1974, at St. Thomas's Church in Gobber. The exorcists believed that they
Oh my god, how many times has this happened to us? Look at the date.
Oh, a lot recently.
This has happened to us multiple times. That is the day we're recording. That's so creepy.
They stated in an all-night ceremony invoked and cast out at least 40 demons, including those of incest, bestiality, blasphemy, and lewdness.
Yeah.
And at the end, they were exhausted and they allowed Taylor to go home, although they felt that there were at least 3 demons left. Insanity, murder, and violence were still left in him.
I remember this one.
And that's the end of that quote. I can't believe, if you're going to leave them with anything, maybe
Probably
blasphemy can
murder.
stay in there and take murder out.
Like, I can imagine there's a good, 40 of them. You could have probably switched out.
I think you start with
instead of
murder.
Yeah. Because I assume they're picking and choosing what ones they're casting out.
You don't think they just put a spiritual fishing hook inside his navel or something like that?
No,
just,
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't imagine that's how it works. But this is just based on vibes.
From what I can remember, there's juice boxes involved, but I can't remember how. You got to go back and listen to the episode.
Yeah.
So Taylor went home, unsurprisingly, with insanity, murder, and violence left within him, brutally murdered his wife, Christine. This is very graphic. He attacks her with his bare hands, tearing her eyes and tongue out and almost tearing her face off.
Oh, I remember
and
this.
then strangling their poodle. He was found by policemen naked in the street covered in blood.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that sounds like all 3 of those demons too, doesn't it?
I bet those guys felt really awkward after they realized that maybe they should have started with those ones.
Yeah, maybe.
But they're so
really
hard.
They're the toughest ones. And I'm surprised they even admitted to leaving those specific demons in him.
I almost wonder if they should have been held on trial for something. I don't know what.
Because they were like, yeah, we definitely left those in. I think they do have some responsibility, to be honest with you. They were taking a break, though.
This isn't quite a possession case because he's acquitted on the grounds of insanity. He lacked the mental capacity. He was sent to Broadmoor Hospital for 2 years and then spent another 2 years in a secure ward in Bradford before being released.
He's released?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. After 4 years. Didn't recommit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it say there if he was ever rid of those last 3 demons?
I really hope so, but no, it does not.
Okay, just curious. Before they released him, you would think they would have done their due diligence, because look what happened leaving them in. I don't know, just my 2 cents.
I really hope they at least got somebody else to do it. The exorcists who were doing it the first time around just did not seem up to the task.
Incompetent, at the least.
Next up is the case of Arn Cheyenne Johnson. They call this the Devil Made Me Do It case in 1981 in Connecticut. Arn Cheyenne Johnson and Debbie Glatzel, they provide firsthand accounts of basically what happened to them in a Discovery Channel show called A Haunting and an episode called Where Demons Dwell. In this, they say that their father was an eyewitness to demonic possession. Arn Cheyenne Johnson and Debbie Glatzel assert that paranormal activity began after they went to clean up a rental property they had just acquired. Who's David? Why does that say David right there? I don't know. David recalled an old man suddenly appeared, pushing and terrifying him. Oh, David is Arn Cheyenne's spouse. The couple initially thought David was using the old man as an excuse to avoid cleaning, but David informed them that the old man had vowed to harm the Glatzels if they moved into the rental home. David's vision of the old man included the man appearing as a demonic beast who muttered Latin and threatened to steal his soul.
Oh no.
Although the family alleged hearing strange noises coming from the attic, no one but David ever witnessed the old man.
And why the fuck didn't David say anything?
Well, he kinda did. After David experienced night terrors, exhibited strange behavior, and obtained unexplained scratches and bruises, the family called upon the services of a Catholic priest who attempted to bless the house.
Nah, you gotta leave.
The terrified family concluded that the house was evil and would no longer continue to rent it. David's visions worsened, occurring in the daytime as well. 12 days after the original incident, the family summoned the demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren to assist.
Oh, thank God.
We have a whole episode on Ed and Lorraine Warren. You can go back and listen to that.
It's a good episode.
Lorraine witnessed a black mist materialize next to David, an indication of a malevolent presence. Debbie and her mother told the Warrens they had seen David being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and the red marks had appeared on his neck afterwards. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible or Paradise Lost. The Glatzels recounted how each night a family member would remain awake with David as he suffered through spasms and convulsions. After receiving a prognosis of multiple possessions from the Warrens, David was subjected to 3 lesser exorcisms. Lorraine asserts that David levitated, ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition, specifically in relation to the manslaughter Johnson would later commit. Spoiler alert for the end of the story here. In October of 1980, the Warrens contacted Brookfield police to warn them that the situation was becoming dangerous. According to the eyewitness testimony, Arn Johnson coerced one of the demons purportedly within David to possess him while participating in David's exorcism. After this incident, Johnson returned to the rental property to examine an old well that supposedly housed the demon. Johnson said that this was his final encounter with the demon while completely lucid. After encountering the demon at the well and making eye contact with it, he became possessed. The Warrens claimed to have warned him not to do this.
What, make eye contact with the demon?
I don't know if they said don't go to the well or don't make eye contact with it, but anyhow, they told him don't do something and he did.
Okay.
As David's condition worsened further, Debbie and Johnson, who had been living in her mother's home, decided it was time to move. Debbie was hired by Alan Bono, a new resident in Brooksfield, as a dog groomer. Debbie and Johnson began renting an apartment close to her place of employment. After moving in, Johnson started to exhibit odd behavior that was strikingly similar to David's, causing Debbie to fear that he had become possessed as well. According to Debbie, Johnson would fall into a trance-like state wherein he would growl and hallucinate but later have no memory of it. And on February 16th, 1981, Johnson called in sick to his job at Right Tree Service and joined Debbie at the kennel where she worked, along with his sister Wanda and Debbie's 9-year-old cousin Mary. Bono, the couple's landlord and Debbie's employer at the kennel, bought the group lunch at a local bar and proceeded to drink heavily. After lunch, the group returned to the kennel, and Debbie then took the girls to get pizza but insisted they return quickly, anticipating trouble. When they returned, Bono, intoxicated at this point, became agitated. Everyone left the room at Debbie's urging except Bono, who seized Mary and refused to let go. Johnson headed back to the apartment and ordered Bono to release Mary. Wanda recounted the following events to the police. Mary ran for the car as Debbie attempted to mitigate the situation by standing between the two men. Wanda tried in vain to pull Johnson away. Johnson, growling like an animal, then drew a 5-inch pocket knife and stabbed Bono repeatedly. Bono died several hours later, according to Johnson's lawyer. Bono had suffered 4 or 5 tremendous wounds, mostly to his chest, and one that stretched from his stomach to the base of his heart. Johnson was discovered 2 miles away from the site of the killing. Sergeant Gordon Fairchild of the Brookfield Police Department said he helped arrest Johnson on a charge of assault while Alan Bono was still being treated at the hospital. He said Johnson told him he did not mean to hurt anyone and was unable to remember anything. While putting him in the police cruiser, Johnson said, quote, "I need help because I've got a drinking problem," end quote, Fairchild Fairchild said. When Johnson was informed at police headquarters that Bono had died, Fairchild said the suspect became incoherent and then fell asleep for 20 to 25 minutes. When Johnson awoke, Police Detective Sergeant John Lucas advised him of his rights and charged Arn Johnson with first-degree murder.
They just let him take a nap.
Yeah, for 20 to 25 minutes.
They're like, oh, he fell asleep.
He's probably in a jail.
Let's just wait until he wakes up to read him his rights. Let's not do it now. Look how cute he looks when he's sleeping.
He just murdered somebody. I think I would let him sleep too.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's just me.
Interestingly enough, apparently, if this ever comes up in trivia, it's the first unlawful killing in the history of Brookfield, Connecticut. So if you're in, like, bar trivia in Brookfield, that might come up.
Wow, interesting. And I just feel like there are so many warning signs ahead of this where Ed and Lorraine Warren come in and they're just like, whatever they said, don't make eye contact with it or anything.
Whatever you do, don't do it.
I feel like if there's an old man that was like telling me to get out and all this stuff that I can't remember what he said now, I would be like, I'm gonna probably just move out.
Well,
like,
and they were renting
like
too. Like, was the rent that low? Or was it that hard to rent in Brookfield?
That's true. You see it again and again in haunting things like that. People can't afford to, like, move when they're in a bad situation. And it's not just hauntings. It's also bad landlords and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. A bad relationship with physical abuse. Yeah.
And they can't afford because of financial means. But I feel like this one is not that bad relationship or stuff isn't a bad sign to get out. But the signs were all there to probably just like leave.
Yeah,
because there's a demon in the house. Well,
to be fair, this is looking back on it in hindsight of knowing there's a murder that took place.
No, they were well aware that he was seeing an entity that was reciting Latin. I would be out of there.
I mean, who amongst us has not had somebody just randomly start spouting Latin at them and thought, you know what, I'm not moving. That takes a lot of work.
It's never okay. It's never, you always gotta move if there's any Latin being taught, especially backwards, especially.
The day after the killing, Lorraine Warren informs Brookfield police that Johnson was possessed when the crime was committed. Just has to get her nose in there.
Yeah, as they do.
A media blitz soon surrounded the story, fueled in part by the Warrens, and I think the in part is a little misleading with that. Whose agents promised that lectures, a book, and a movie detailing the gruesome case were in the works.
These guys.
Martina Manella, Johnson's lawyer, received calls from all over the world about what was being called the demon murder trial. Manella traveled to England to meet with lawyers who had been involved in two similar cases. We know one, which we just talked about. He planned to bring an exorcism specialist from Europe and threatened to subpoena the priest who oversaw David Glatzel's exorcism if they did not cooperate with the defense. The trial took place in Connecticut Superior Court in Danbury, beginning on October 28, 1981. Manila attempted to submit a plea of not guilty by virtue of possession, but the presiding judge, Robert Callahan, promptly rejected this defense. Callahan argued that no such defense could ever exist in law due to the lack of evidence and that it would be irrelevant and unscientific to allow related testimony.
Oh, that answers my question.
The defense chose to imply that Johnson acted in self-defense. Because of this, the jury was not legally allowed to consider demonic possession as a viable explanation for the killing. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Johnson on November 24th, 1981 of first-degree manslaughter. On December 18th, 1981, he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years behind bars, though he served only 5 years, or approximately 1 month shorter of 5 years.
On second thought, I feel like I couldn't be on the jury on something like this, because as soon as they even hinted at possession, I don't know that I would ever get it out of my head, and therefore I would fuck everything up.
You would actually be pretty terrible on a jury, just because a judge does have to say, okay, don't think about this, don't consider this. You cannot consider if something's stricken from the record, like an objection, you'll say, okay, no, you can't consider that. And then I know you would be like, I can't think of anything but this.
And then when you're deliberating, I'd be like, has everyone ever thought of whatever this thing is that was stricken from the record? Are we considering that in this?
Okay, I'm just saying this off the record, but...
So if I'm ever on a jury, then I have to start with, I just have to be honest, I cannot...
Don't tell me what not to
do. I cannot mentally get around something that you tell me not to think of. And if there's even a small chance of possession, I'm going to side with possession. Okay? Okay.
And I'm sorry, we just need to look at the speed of the 1980s court system. The murder happened on February 16th, 1981. He's convicted on November 24th, 1981, and sentenced on December 18th, 1981.
But this was their first one.
Yeah, true. But you think
So
that
it
mean
was maybe
it took longer? I should say, first in that town. This court system, he stood trial in, sorry, where was it?
Connecticut.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was somewhere else in Connecticut that would have been able to handle a murder trial because it's a
See, I was right.
bigger court. Yeah.
Okay, while we're on the topic, this is not on the topic. There's no Ed and Lorraine Warren of our time, is there? I don't think there is.
Possession-wise, no. Spirituality isn't as popular as it used to be in the haunting and possession sort of way.
That's true.
It's more so alien stuff. And I think
That's
bigger people are in
true.
the UFO community than the spirituality community these days.
And this one is a movie, right?
Yes. It's actually been many movies.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I find this defense lawyer seemed to do a terrible job. Do you agree with me, Chelsea, in that they wouldn't let her use possession, so she used self-defense instead of saying, I don't know, lacked mental capacity, insanity, something along the lines of that.
Even I know that. And I don't know much about law.
This lawyer seemed a little butthurt that she couldn't go with something that would be like groundbreaking. So she said, screw it, I'm not going to represent well at all now.
Okay, and what happened to him again? Sorry, he was found
found guilty, served just under 5 years in jail.
Yeah, because his lawyer sucked. Under 5 years?
Yeah. Actually, in possession cases with murder, we're averaging right around 4.5 years, which is kind of crazy.
That is super crazy, and especially because none of them can be, like, ruled possessed. Like, they're still being found.
I'm almost wondering if it's taken into account its sentencing or something. They can't, but you take into account all these factors.
Because this one said that it was self-defense. And could the judge rule on that? I doubt it.
On convicting, you can't, but I'm wondering under sentencing if that's a factor that they take into account for how many years you should get.
Well, it seems like it is around 4.
Yeah. Going right. After this all happens, Lorraine Warren defends her work with the family, claiming that the 6 priests who were involved in the incident agreed at the time that the boy was possessed and that the supernatural events she described were real. Unfortunately, I don't think she ever took the stand here, because I would have loved to see her as an expert and get cross-examined under oath, because this woman has lied so much in her life.
Oh, yeah.
No independent verification of this claim about the priest's alleged views was provided. Glatzel's father, Carl Glatzel Sr., denies telling the author that his son was possessed. Johnson and Debbie, now married, wholeheartedly support the Warrens' account of demonic possession and have stated that the litigants were suing simply for the money. Then this gets so, I'm sure Johnson's doing pretty well from, everything that he's been represented in the media. So starting in 1983, he's still in jail at that point, served 2 years into his 5-year sentence. Gerald Brittle, with the assistance of Lorraine Warren, published a book about the incident entitled The Devil in Connecticut. Lorraine Warren states that profits from the book were shared with the family. However, sources confirm that $2,000 were paid to the family by the book publisher.
Yeah,
so not that much.
And that comes up again and again with them.
Upon the book's republication in 2006 by iUniverse, David Glatzel and his brother Carl Glatzel Jr. sued the authors and book publishers for violating their right to privacy, libel, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Carl also claimed that the book alleged he committed criminal and abusive acts against his family and others. He said that the possession story was a hoax concocted by Ed and Lorraine Warren to exploit the family and his brother's mental illness, and that the book represents him as the villain because he did not believe in the supernatural claims. He asserted that the Warrens, Brittle, author of The Devil in Connecticut, says he wrote the book because, quote, the family wanted the story told, end quote. That he possesses videos of over 100 hours of his interviews with the family and that they signed off on the book as accurate before it went to print. According to Carl Glatzel, publicity generated by the incident forced him to drop out of school and lose friends and business opportunities. In 2007, he began writing a book titled Alone Through the Valley about his version of the events surrounding his brother. I don't know if that book ever got made. Now, the events inspire the premise of the 2021 film The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and an earlier made-for-TV film is also based on the case, The Demon Murder Case, which was produced again in 1983 and starred Kevin Bacon. I have never heard of this.
What? Nope.
Netflix produced a documentary in 2023, The Devil on Trial, based on this case. It includes interviews with Carl Glatzel, whose comments suggest a naturalistic alternative to demonic possession in the influence of Somanex. One thing that actually just made me think, they must have had a pretty terrible case for insanity if they dropped it right after they said, no, you can't do possession, then say, okay, self-defense. The case could not have been good.
This really fucks everything up. No kidding. Either that or they were just a really terrible lawyer. Just like a fuck up, like just barely passed the bar.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one or the other. Maybe both.
Yeah. It's so weird.
One does not preclude the other. But yeah, that's the Conjuring case. That is probably the most famous of all of this. I think it's the most made up of all of them, too.
Really?
Mostly because of the Warrens. If you get the Warrens' names involved in anything, I'm like, oh, they're lying. They just wanted to make money
sorry.
off it.
Of all your cases?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you just meant of... Actually, I don't know what I was
law
thinking.
in general.
Now that I think about it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking there. The Warrens are just absolutely full of shit.
My next case, although you definitely know this case, but you would not think of it as a possession case. And that is David Berkowitz, the Son of Sam killer.
Maybe I would think of it as a possession case. There was something with him.
Oh yeah, it's very direct.
Yeah.
Although it's going to be very short because it's not that great of a possession case, but nonetheless, super famous case. And because it does get brought up, I thought it's important to kind of include it here.
Yeah, okay. I like this one. We haven't really talked serial killers on the podcast before, but I did just watch the document. Well, maybe like a month, 2, 3 months ago. I did watch the documentary on Netflix.
Okay, well, I'm going to give everybody a Cole's notes of this case, just so that you can kind of like, oh, right, that famous serial killer. Between July 1976 and July 1977, New York was gripped by fear as a series of seemingly random shootings left 6 people dead and 7 wounded. The killer targeted young couples, often while they sat in parked cars late at night. The assailant used a .44 caliber revolver and left behind cryptic letters signed Son of Sam. These letters taunted police and the media, fueling a frenzy of speculation and panic. The city was paralyzed, with residents altering their routines and police launching one of the largest manhunts in New York history. The breakthrough came when a parking ticket issued near one of the crime scenes led investigators to David Berkowitz, a 24-year-old postal worker from Yonkers. Upon searching his car and apartment, police found the murder weapons and other incriminating evidence, and Berkowitz was arrested on August 10th, 1977, and quickly confessed to the killings. When he was arrested, he quickly confessed and claimed that a demon named Harvey had possessed his neighbor Sam Carr's dog and was sending him messages to kill. Berkowitz said he was tormented by voices and compelled to obey their commands, describing himself as a soldier in a satanic war. This narrative was reinforced by the cryptic letters he sent to police and media signed Son of Sam, which reference occult themes, paranoia, and a mysterious network of evil forces. The possession claim wasn't just a personal delusion. It became a public spectacle, feeding into the era's growing fear of satanic cults and ritualistic crimes. However, the legal system didn't entertain the possession defense at all. He was found completely competent to stand trial and pleaded guilty to all charges. Over time, he recanted on the demonic story, admitting it was a hoax designed to mislead investigators and amplify its notoriety. In later interviews and writings, Berkowitz claimed he fabricated the possession angle to mask deeper psychological issues and to manipulate the media. He eventually goes on to become a born-again Christian while he's in prison, renouncing his past and urging others not to glorify his crimes, and even now goes by the Son of Hope. Yeah. He's still alive, too.
He really loves that son of.
Yeah. No idea why.
You know what? I really don't think that I finished the documentary because I didn't know that last part. I knew the other stuff. And about the dog. It was the dog that was the weird part.
The freaking dog, yeah. And yeah, he's technically not possessed, but also he said there were voices commanding him, so he was kind of, if you take it literally in that way, he also was, possessed, but also he wasn't, because he says he made the whole story up.
Interesting how that works. That was a pleasant surprise.
This one is really weird. I like this story a lot, but viewer discretion advised on this one. It's not as gory as the first one, but it's kind of a little sad at the end.
Oh no, I hate sad at the end. It doesn't involve a pet, does it?
It does not. You're fine.
Okay. Because that needs a different viewer discretion advice.
It does. So This is the story of Sean Richard Sellers. Sellers and his best friend, Richard Howard, had been discussing how it would feel to kill someone. Sellers confesses during this time to the September 8th, 1985 murder of Robert Paul Bauer, a 32-year-old Circle K convenience store clerk who had refused to sell beer to Howard. According to Howard, who was present for but did not participate in the murder, Sellers wanted to see what it feels like to kill somebody. And sorry, I should say, Sellers is born in 69. This is all happening in 85, so he's 16 years old.
Oh.
Sellers said he decided to kill his mother after a fight over his girlfriend, whom his mother didn't like. He'd served his mother several cups of coffee laden with rat poison, but this didn't work. On March 5th, 1986, Sellers shot and killed his mother and stepfather, Vonda and Lee Bellafato, with a .44 caliber revolver while they were asleep in the bedroom of their Oklahoma City home. Wearing only underwear to limit blood splatter on himself, he first shot his stepfather. The shot awoke his mother, whom he shot in the face.
Jesus.
Sellers tried to disguise his guilt by arranging the crime scene to look like an intruder had committed the killings. Howard testified that after the murders, Sellers came to his house and said he killed his parents. Howard was also initially charged with first-degree murder, but the charges were dismissed when he received a 5-year suspension sentence for being an accessory after the fact after agreeing to testify against Sellers. So at his trial, Sellers said he was a practicing Satanist at the time of the murder and claimed that demonic possession by the demon Ezerate,
oh, for fuck's sakes,
caused him to murder his victims. In later documents, he claimed to have read the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey hundreds of times between the age of 15 and 16 when the crimes were committed. And in a confession letter written from prison, he reflected on this period of his life. Quote, "I got very involved in Satanism. I truly thought it was an honest way to live and the rituals of it would enable me to control my life." End of quote. His attorneys also argued Sellers was addicted to the game Dungeons and Dragons, although Sellers would later write that the game had no part in his crimes and that, quote, "using my past as a common example of the effects of the game is either irrational or fanatical." End quote.
Sorry, what year was this?
85. This is the height of the satanic panic.
There we go.
Yeah. And I almost feel like this is the lawyers trying to push this angle to say he can't be held accountable for it because there's all this going on with children. The jury refused to consider either claim, and Sellers was found guilty of multiple homicides and sentenced to death in 1986. At the time, Oklahoma law did not give juries the option of giving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. That choice became available the next year. One juror later said that the jury feared that Sellers would be paroled in 7 to 15 years and that this prison term was not lengthy enough. This led the jury to vote for a death sentence. However, other jurors denied that this was part of their deliberation. Now, while in jail, Sellers became a Christian. His friends started a website on his behalf, and he campaigned for clemency based on his religious conversion, age, and involvement in Satanism. While on death row, Sellers made numerous appearances in the mass media, appearing on Oprah Winfrey, on a notorious segment of Geraldo about Satanism, and he appeared in documentaries about Satanism and serial killers on 48 Hours, MSNBC, and A&E Network. Sellers married in prison in February of 1995, but the marriage was annulled in 1997. Sellers' step-siblings doubted that his conversion to Christianity was a sincere one. Of this, many surviving family members, only his step-grandfather believed his conversion to be sincere. However, the prison chaplain believed he had truly converted. During his 1999 appeal to the 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal, Sellers contended that he had multiple personality disorders. The appellate court ruled that there was uncontroverted evidence of Sellers' religious conversion that he may indeed suffer from multiple personality disorder. The panel of judges concluded that while Sellers might have been insane at the time of the crime, the claim was made too late to be raised on appeal. Human Rights Watch condemned this decision to, quote, uphold the sentence on narrow procedural grounds despite the acknowledged uncontested clinical evidence that Sellers suffers from multiple personality disorders, end quote, adding in its letter to Governor Keating that, quote, no civilized society can accept the execution of a person who was a child at the time he committed the crimes and who was and remains afflicted with a mental disorder. Such an execution offends the most basic principles of international justice and morality. End quote. Psychiatric experts scoffed at Sellers' claims, arguing that any true mental illness would have been diagnosed soon after Sellers' arrest and not 7 years later. Prison officials also cast doubt on Sellers' mental illness by saying they saw Sellers rehearsing the evidence of mental illness and receiving coaching from his attorney, which is very illegal, spying on a lawyer with a client. He did appeal to the Supreme Court, but the court declined this appeal. Sellers' imminent execution brought documentation from a wide variety of sources, including the European Union, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the American Bar Association, and Bianca Jaeger. Nearly all raised issues about his age at the time of the crime, and many argued that this religious work from prison outweighed the state's need to execute him. However, he was still executed by lethal injection on February 4th, 1999 at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester, Oklahoma at 12:17 a.m. For his last meal, he had Chinese food, egg rolls, sweet and sour shrimp, and battered shrimp. He began his final statement by addressing his step-siblings. Quote, "All the people that are hating me right now and are waiting to see me die, when you wake up in the morning, you're not going to feel any different. You're going to hate me just as much tomorrow as tonight. When you wake up and nothing has changed inside, reach out to God and he will be there for you. Reach out to God and he will heal you. Let him touch your hearts. Don't hate all your lives. I love you all." In the final minutes before the injection, Sellers sang modern Christian music and then loudly said, "Here I come, Father, I'm coming home," and then turned to the ward and said, "Let's do it, Gary. Let's get it on." Sellers finally saying his last words, "Set my spirit free that I may praise thee. Set my spirit free that I may worship thee." Sellers' step-siblings objected to the substance of his final remarks, that instead of apologizing or mentioning their mother, he only addressed the fact that they still feel the same. It's very presumptuous that he would know how we would feel, said his stepsister. I don't know, just when you get to that point in like the death row where they're actually getting to the death, I don't know, I find that really dark in a weird way. I don't know how to quite explain it.
It is, especially given some of the stuff that they brought up, which I think is relevant. I don't know, everyone has their views on stuff like the death penalty and stuff, right?
Yeah, there's a whole other political side of that. Like Oklahoma, 16-year-old, completely disregard the mental health thing and be like, well, not for us to say you couldn't have had capacity at this point, so we're just going to have to kill you. Yeah. Yeah,
we're too far into it now, so I guess you gotta die. An eye for an eye.
We're going to move on to the last case here, which, like I said, I'm curious whether or not you can consider this in the same category as a possession claim.
Interesting you chose to include it.
Yes. It is a very famous Supreme Court of Canada case that you have to read. Not all criminal law classes, but the criminal law class I took in Canada, this came up. In the early morning of May 24th, 1987. Very different times.
Same thing.
Kenneth Parks, the main character of the story, gets in his car, drives 20 kilometers from Pickering, Ontario to the house of his in-laws in Scarborough, Ontario. Enters the house with a key they had previously given him and used a tire iron to bludgeon his mother-in-law to death. He then turns to his father-in-law, attempting unsuccessfully to choke him to death. Covered with blood, Parks gets back in his car, drives straight to a nearby police station and confesses, turning himself in and saying, quote, "I think I have just killed 2 people," end quote. At trial, Parks argues that he was automatastic and not criminally liable. In his defense, a doctor testifies as to his mental state at the time of the murder. From the doctor's evidence, it was determined that the accused was sleepwalking at the time of the incident, and he was suffering from a disorder of sleep rather than neurological, psychiatric, or other illnesses.
What?
5 neurological experts also confirmed that he was sleepwalking during the time of the incident.
How are they confirming this? Sorry, continue your story.
Originally, he gets acquitted, and the issue ends up getting all the way to the Supreme Court.
What?
And the question is whether or not the condition of sleepwalking can be classified as non-insane automatism, or should be classified as a disease of the mind, and warrant a verdict of not guilty for reason of insanity.
See, now here's something that would be interesting to sit on the jury of, because what evidence would they have for the doctors to weigh that he was in fact sleepwalking?
Yeah, I know.
That's
but
my
like
first
so many
thought.
experts that were fully able to convince judges all the way to the Supreme Court that he was not guilty.
Okay, so they would have been able to provide some sort of substantiation.
It must have been convincing enough to do that.
Now, I may have been able to be convinced if it was maybe a part of his routine to have been trying to murder people while he was sleepwalking. Could that have been the evidence? In which case, I would probably say, yeah, okay, like, I think you got something here. And this time he succeeded.
And I can't quite remember the evidence behind this, but he had a pattern of sleepwalking and doing fairly intricate things. However, he had never actually, like, attacked anyone before.
And driven a car. Maybe he did drive a car.
No, I think he had driven a car before.
What? Yeah, and you know what? From my sleepwalking, like, maybe you could drive a car because you're just, like, dreaming. I don't feel like I would drive a car good, though. Because you're not using your rational mind. In which case, I could see maybe murdering someone.
But he drove 20 kilometers.
Redact that. Take that out.
Okay.
Don't let me admit to it.
Okay.
20 kilometers.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe it.
Like, that's a good half-hour drive in, like, a population-dense part of Canada.
But you're on autopilot. No,
Yeah.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it because I sleepwalk. Nothing for sleepwalking. You're dreaming. You're in a dream. Like, it's just your body not shutting off during that. So it's not rational. Like, you don't do normal everyday things. Like, you don't get in the car and drive to work. You don't get in the car and go and murder your in-laws. Like, that's not... I mean, I haven't gotten in the car. I have gone outside in the middle of winter, though. And, like, I
Not
wouldn't
20
otherwise...
kilometers, yeah.
No, I wouldn't otherwise go outside in the middle of winter in my pajamas. It's not rational thinking. Not that murdering someone is.
But Chelsea, this goes to the Supreme Court of Canada, and they uphold the acquittal. They say that there is evidence presented that cast reasonable doubt about whether Parks acted voluntarily. Chief Justice at the time, Antonio Lemaire, held that the trial judge was correct in his analysis of the evidence and his decision not to characterize sleepwalking as a mental disorder. And this was agreed to by many of the judges, who also added in the characterization of the evidence, they agreed, but looked further into the public policy of the defense. You know, it's not worth getting into the nitpicky details. We're not a legal podcast, so I can just kind of end it there. But I am curious.
I'm very curious.
I don't know. I intuitively felt this fell into the criminal cases that kind of had a possession defense. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what to feel about this. I was
talking to a lawyer friend who got mad at me and said this is a categorically different thing. And I'm like, it's not really, though. And disagreed
I don't think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's very adjacent.
I would agree with you there. Having not have any lawyer law.
I think it might be because we've talked about old hags before, and that could be a type of possession that's sleepwalking you to murder people.
I would be intrigued to know the evidence here. What kind of evidence they would have to say that
everybody seems to agree, oh yeah, there's a good chance he actually didn't.
This is definitely sleepwalking. And how you would prove that it would have to be without a doubt, right? That's what was happening for him to have. Was he acquitted?
So he didn't end up going to jail. And remember, you need to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So the evidence was at least enough to cast doubt.
Oh.
That you did not have capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's not like, oh yeah, fully 100% this is what happened. It's like the likelihood of it is more likely.
See, that's another thing that would get me on a jury. I feel like that without reason, like the reasonable doubt thing. I feel like I would always be second guessing myself as well. So I feel like I'd always like...
Well, yeah, and... I don't know. With what we talk about on this podcast, what's reasonable seems different than the average person at this point.
It's true. And if I ever get called to jury duty, I'm just going to tell them about this episode.
Look, it's hard to explain. Just listen to this episode that's an hour long. You'll get it.
Just listen to the whole thing. Like us, follow us, share it if you like it. The other thing is I listen to true crime all the time. I'll be listening to something, I'm like, they fucking did it. And then the next second, I'm like, they didn't do it. And I just can't, like, I would do the same thing if I sat on a jury, right? About, like, a case like this. I'd be like, I don't fucking know. 1 second, I'd be like, oh, he totally was sleepwalking. And the next second, I'd be like, there's no way he was sleepwalking. It's a tough thing, listening to true crime.
Well, yeah, Chelsea, those are the cases I could find that are possession and possession adjacent defenses. It turns out, if you want it to work out, probably go with the adjacent, or your lawyer might get all upset and just like completely screw up the case.
It was the most successful of the night. And super Halloween-y too.
Yeah. And with that, I have been Taylor, here with Chelsea. We are Journey to the Fringe. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Journey to the Fringe. If you have liked what you have listened to, please like, share, subscribe, or follow, depending on what venue you are listening to us through. Also, please, if possible, leave a 5-star review, as that really helps us in the algorithms. Should you wish to interact with us, please check us out on your social media of choice. I bet you we are there. And if you really want to communicate with us and give us ideas for new episodes, or tell us that we're wrong and terrible, either way, please send us an email at journeytothefringe@gmail.com. For now, I'll see you in the next episode.